Okay, just to start this off, looking at Mr. Adam Smith's thread here with about how, men and women communicate different and the whole solution versus validation thing. I realize even with Uplift Protocol, that's the reason why Gino and Thomas's relationship works versus what happened with Anna. Anna really wasn't feeling like she was getting validated much. But on the other hand, Gino is very quite certain that that Thomas is on the ball and providing that level of protection, security, and intimate comfort. So that's the reason why they're going to have more babies. Like that. There you go. I just never realized like how even subconsciously I was putting some very women type attitudes into some of the female characters. Because so much modern media nowadays is man with boob syndrome. Because, like I was telling Dad about this whole scenario, he's like, yes, it's because we're all wired differently. And I'm like, yeah, makes sense. And part of the reason why I haven't focused in on the guys as much just yet is because their stuff is going to come into play a little bit later. It's like I'm taking each section and unwinding it a little bit to showcase a little bit more of the onion. But yeah, you'll see what Dexter's role is going to be later, because yes, Eliza is going to pierce the dragon, but Dexter's not going to be just sitting there cheering from the sidelines. He's going to have to be doing some equivalent stuff within the weave itself, because that's where Black's domain more so is. White's domain is more on the physical side, but no less important, and his is more on the weave side. Again, you'll see this back and forth. I just like putting stuff in, planting the seeds everywhere. The book 0 and book 1 was more like kind of like establishing the initial world, and book 2 is basically like, okay, here comes the seeds. Here comes so many seeds, and then as the series continues and ever their seasons hit, you'll see a lot of those seeds get a little bit of a TLC, and like, oh, they pop up later, kind of like how Babylon 5 did it. But as I look more and more into things, like, and I keep rereading Miss Morgan's whole idea of filtering, because it's like, at least that keeps me grounded to where, like, okay, I can use a little bit of filtering where it makes sense, but yeah, I'm starting to do more sentences where it's not like the character felt or the character saw. There's still some, points to do that every once in a while. You don't, like, negate it completely. But yeah, I try to do more sentences where it's like a direct connection between the reader and the writer and all that sort of fun stuff. Because more and more, when I keep looking into this stuff just to see what people are talking about, a lot of modern books are written more like screenplays because they want to be published by Hollywood and get some sort of crazy ass movie out there. But kind of like with publishing with books, sometimes you're better just to strike out on your own. I mean, can some people make it in TradPub? Sure. But like I've said in other videos, TradPub isn't really going to crown another J.K. Rowling or another Stephen King. And besides, of the two, more people say, like, oh, I want to be a J.K. Rowling where I get billions of dollars from writing. It's not going to happen. Like, J.K. Rowling was kind of like lightning in a bottle. It just kept converging and building upon itself and building and building. Hell, J.K. Rowling's stuff is bigger than even most of the other established IP stuff. Like, comic book land, traditional publishing comic book land, wishes they were 10% as big as J.K. Rowling. From the looks of the numbers and how much sold. Oof. Yeah, because not even that Twilight stuff sold as much as J.K. Rowling's stuff. Whew, boy. Yeah. She could basically live off the royalties of Harry Potter for the rest of her continued existence, from the looks of it. But yeah, to get back to that thread a bit, men and women do communicate differently. it's the reason why I have the characters in Uplift Protocol act differently. And the reason why Thomas acts the way he does is he's partially based on Sheridan, but he's also partially based on how my dad reacts to things. Like, my dad wasn't an army officer. He was enlisted, you know, got the sergeant first class and everything. But the way he approaches certain situations is like how my dad approaches certain situations. So no matter what you're going to do with your writing, you're going to always probably draw on yourself, your own experiences, and the experiences of others you know. It's the reason why pretty much majority of the characters in Uplift Protocol are based on someone I've known, a little bit of their traits. Like, it could be friends, family members, people I've met, like, you know, it's all mixed into there. So that way it's not like all of myself is concentrated into one character. Because otherwise, yeah, you will get more of a self-insert kind of character. If I was more game to it, I might make some sort of like funny, like kind of self-insert, like fourth wall breaking thing. But yeah, that's just something on the table if I decide to do that later. No, every once in a while I'll have the characters remark about like, wait, this is getting more absurd. You know, kind of like how Zach was remarking, like, wait, is everybody in this whole thing related to each other somehow? And it's like, yeah, they kind of are, but they aren't. Like, not everybody's going to be connected by legit genetics, or they're directly related to each other, that, you know, with that avenue. But in a very real way, since White did create the scholars, you know, she's a kind of like a mother figure to a lot of them, but most of them don't realize that she's the one that, you know, basically created them. Which, yeah, I'm going to be using Books Free Mars to kind of extrapolate a lot of stuff about the Markav homogeny and a few of the past cycle stuff. Because now that I look at it, yeah, like, there's certain aspects that I did tear away from Mass Effect where it's like I like the idea of cyclical things happening, and some of that knowledge was lost, but unlike Mass Effect where it becomes like a moot point where it's like, well, no matter how much you throw at the Reapers, it doesn't matter. No, I'm going to make that matter in Uplift Protocol. Because if you're going to have a cosmic eldritch entity horror, you got to build in your MacGuffin to wiggle out of it, you know. If you build that and then build that MacGuffin that counteracts it, like right from the beginning, you can build up the foreshadowing, so that way you don't get, you know, retarded Star Kid giving Shepard 3 colored code rings of death. You know, it's I mean, it's sad that stuff like that can help you become a better writer, but it's true. Because if you look like ultimately what gut punched you, then you know not to repeat it with your own stuff. And I'll leave that poll open for a little while longer to see what kind of class people want to call the Project Freefall stuff. And I probably will have an Operation Freefall later with when they start out on their initial, like, we're gonna save the universe and the multiverse, that sort of thing. It's gonna be fun. In fact, they're gonna do a test run with the Jupiter Rising and a couple of the other ships when they get to go off and find Matarn's body. That's just like, ha ha ha! I'm running around here, and everybody thinks just I'm an insane old man, except for a handful of people. But, yeah, I figured that would be a fun way to be like, where's my mind, dude? It's like, oh, it's over there. And, you know, because initially I was like, what would be a good way to connect, like, Pandora with a few other things? And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I can make the Sailing Silver ship, you know, Pandora's box, basically, because Pandora's box decides to take on different types of forms whenever needed, but it's not really, you know, an object that is inherently like good or evil. It's basically goes with whoever's using it, and since Pandora didn't really understand it at all too well, yeah, she used it to basically pop Matarn's mind in there, like, okay, I'm not going to let you kill Unity. You'll get to see a little bit of that kerfuffle later. I mean, this is what I find fun about writing. It's like, yes, just like Mr. Niemeyer said, and with the old pulps, you pose a couple of questions, you answer some, then you pose a few more questions, then you answer those. You know, you give people little mysteries to follow, and sometimes that's just enough to keep people going. And because I've noticed even with rereading Narnia, it has a few battle pieces to it, but it's mainly like little mysteries that connect itself together and then makes you keep reading. I think most of his stuff was between 40 and 60,000 words, and it just flies by. And he didn't even do a ton of like extensive world building. He just did very simple, present the mystery, solve some of it, present the mystery, solve some of it, and then the overall big arcing mystery of the book, and then solve that, or at least basically present the answers to it. So I do hope that I'm providing some fun in that regard. I know I'm providing myself fun because I keep writing, and I'm like, I think I'm even going faster than I was with the previous books. It's just, the more you write, the more fluid it'll become. Like, the easier you could just like bloop, 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 and so just to get back on point, I suppose. Even Gino asked for validation from her daughter, and in some ways this will happen on later on with her son. But how I set up Typherian society, the women overall control a whole lot of social aspects, but the men control a whole lot of the military aspects, so, the sciences, and a few other things. It's kind of like a, how can you say it? It's a push and pull where both sides balance each other out for the most part. But that's the reason why when Eliza and crew first visits Typha, her mother is keeping her extremely pig shit ignorant, because a lot of the social cues plays off the woman. So by keeping her in the dark with that, and this is also, her brothers are also in on this too, because they're very much aware of a lot of the social etiquettes. So that's the reason why, just to give you a little hint, why they found how the queen, acted when she visited Earth to be highly, like, oh my goodness, that's a bit scandalous, because she was treating Earth's nobles and leaders exactly the same, giving them the same courtesies that normally Typherians would be like, yes, the two women will do their whole social dance, and everybody else fades in the background. But no, when she went up to, say, Elias and shook his hand, he was like, oh, that's scandalous. Wait, the men lead social? Oh. But yes, for the Typherian side of things, it's pretty freaking hilarious. And you guys will get to see that later on with how that develops. But when it comes to how the characters interact, I wanted to do things that would fit into, like, well, again, women approach situations differently from men. Even if they have the same training or some of the same skills, women on a battlefield will react differently than men on a battlefield. And I also took a little bit of that from the mixed unit stuff that I experienced in the Navy. Like, an all-male unit in a combat situation will react differently than a mixed unit in a combat situation. Because, like my dad said, we're all wired differently. And yes, the hormones within men and women will play out differently to our brains. That's just all there is to it. And that's it for this ramble today. See you later, everybody.